Usually by this time we're usually live, but it doesn't tell me. But we're just gonna wait until it gives me the cue. Because usually by this time when we are already we're already live. So
Yeah.
so I would like to thank everybody who's actually going to be watching this video. This is the first one I do in English, and with one of my best friends. And I am actually this is going to be my lucky charm for the English version of Nuestro Espacio, and it means our space, which is our channel to talk about everything that's going on out there, politically, sports, music, and also about people who have anxiety, diabetes. So I have a lot of invitations, Didi. I don't know if you've watched a few things here. Usually it's in Spanish, but I'm implementing things in English because I have a lot of people following from here, Arizona and California and Florida, who only speak a little bit of Spanish. And so we're going to be talking today about something very important, that it's very important for our community, especially the community of Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, and many other parts. So let me introduce you to the representative or the president or the founder of Somos Independent, Deedee Garcia Blaze. Hi, how are you today?
Good, Salvador. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm so excited that we finally can talk about good news in our country, about something that can actually benefit our community, benefit our nation, our country. Finally, no,
Yeah,
after 4 years.
yeah. Been hell.
So, what do you think about our new president before we start about talking about immigration?
Yeah, well, I think he's on the right track. As soon as he was sworn in as president, automatically he started doing executive orders. He had a whole agenda of things to take care of. And one of the most important things that stuck out in my mind last week was when I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday, he said that he was going to stop deportation. He was going to halt. I gathered to just sort of regroup.
For 100 days, and that is very important. Why is it important to hold 100 days instead of just massively deporting people in less than 5 days?
Well, because his administration has to assess the situation. As you know, the Obama administration, uh, he did get criticized for putting families, in cages. But at the time, we had this huge influx of the Hondurans, the El Salvadorians, a lot of undocumented immigrants, and they had nowhere to put them. Now, immediately he got called out. The Obama administration was notified that this was happening, that the Border Patrol was doing this. And then that's when they took him out of that situation and put him in humane conditions. Now, during that time frame, we knew, Salvador, that comprehensive immigration reform couldn't get passed. We knew that. He knew that. So what the Obama administration did is he did the executive order DAPA, which keeps families together, and DACA, as you know, the Dreamers. So that kind of stopped the bleeding, but the Obama administration continued to focus on deporting the quote unquote real criminal element. I mean, we're talking the dangerous, the criminals, not the law abiding, productive society, the productive members of society with regard to the undocumented immigrants. And I think that's what the Biden administration is doing, is they have to put a 100-day stop to assess the situation. Obviously, he wants to emulate not separating families.
Not separating families. And that is very important because people were complaining and saying, oh, but the cages was done by the Democrats and it was by Obama. But you just explained something very, very, very carefully and with information. We were dealing with massive of
Influx.
influx of immigration there, so there was no space, so they had to do that. Meanwhile, once the government, in this case President Obama, noticed that this was happening, he took action. It's not that he wanted those kids in cages like our previous administration. Am I
Correct.
right?
That's correct. He fixed it, did DAPA, did DACA. As soon as Trump came into office, he knew that the restrictionists, the isolationists, the racists, the bigots, he knew that they would love for the undocumented immigrants to put into harsh conditions. So what Trump did is he immediately repealed the Obama administration's DAPA that kept families together. And he didn't give a crap. He just deported everybody without thinking about humane conditions.
Or even a true hearing.
Correct.
You know, because I mean, they could have been arrested for God knows what, not even a crime, and be deported.
Well, don't you remember that the children didn't even have representation? They were denied representation.
Well,
Children.
they were put in front of a judge.
Yeah.
Like, that's really, can you put a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old in front of a judge and they don't know the English and they were asking them questions? Like, where in the world do you see this happening?
Right. And the Obama administration never did that. Everybody was represented. Once the Obama administration was notified about the horrible conditions after this massive influx of people just crossing the border and using asylum protection, which makes our nation great. It's biblical. It is biblical. The asylum goes way back to the Jewish people who sought asylum. And
Really?
we're talking back in the first few books of the Bible. Yeah, that's why you and I have had our personal discussions with regard to Catholicism. I know you're Catholic,
Yes.
but you know, the Pope is very immigrant friendly, humane. But then on the other side of the coin, you get these hypocritical Christian evangelicals who love to quote the Bible, but they don't want to talk about how we're supposed to treat immigrants and talk about asylum.
They didn't do anything for 4 years when they went to Texas, when they went to New Mexico and saw the kids in cages. And the most important thing that I liked, and I think you know about this, that President Biden, it wants to reunite those kids that for some reason or another lost track of who their parents were or where they are. And that is important.
I don't know if you remember, but I think around December, a journalist or some newspaper media outlet stated that there were 666 orphans, 666 children who couldn't find their parents. And this is under the Trump administration. And it's the Trump administration and its supporters. And you know, I personally have relatives and faraway friends now who don't believe that immigration is a humane topic.
Well, we should remind those people where they came from and where their ancestors suffered, because some of them don't remember that most of them came from Europe and they came hungry, they came sick, and they came, you know, with diseases to our the new land, and they were welcomed. So we should remember them, that they are not usually most of the Anglo, and let's just say it like that, this is not their continent. They came here from somewhere else, and they were welcomed by our Native Americans with respect, with dignity, and they were fed and they were cured. So for them to say, I don't believe in immigration, well, they should start looking at their ancestry and where they came from, because it's kind of like hypocrite that you're an immigrant, because even though you were born here for many generations, you're still an immigrant descendant from this land. And that's what I don't get. All these people saying, oh, no, they're coming to invade. Really? Are they?
Mm-hmm. No, you know this about me personally. When I did my DNA, I saw that I was 49% Native American. So I hired a genealogist and discovered that my people come from the Humano Nation. And we were like bison hunters in Texas. And you know, if you look at the Trump supporters, a lot of them call themselves nativists. Yeah, nativists.
Yeah.
But really, the only people that can call themselves native or indigenous are the people that were here before the Europeans came on boat.
Yes.
And I take issue personally with people who refer to undocumented immigrants as quote unquote wetbacks. I take issue with that term. You know, back, you know, in early days.
In the 70s and the 80s.
They had Operation Wetback policies where they were trying to get rid of too many brown people and trying to deport them to whatever country they were coming from. But it was okay if you look European or whatever, then that was okay. And I don't agree with that.
And I understand talking about this, talking about a little bit of the research they've done. A lot of people say we should do it the legal way. I understand. We do have a constitution and we should respect it. And I understand that we do have laws, about immigration, but there is some holes in that way that we do things because people from Europe who want to come to the United States have to wait not much time from people from Latin America that have to wait for 20, 30 years. So the things are not equal. So people who come and tell me, oh, we should do the right day. I applied and I came here. Well, yeah, maybe your country has a 1 year wait. While other people have 30, 40, 50. So the law is not that equal to all the people. Because if you go to Latin America, they're not going to wait a year if they do a petition. They have more than 20 years to wait. And not like other countries like in Europe, that they have it very fast.
Right, and obviously that's a visa problem.
Exactly.
And I do agree with you. The current immigration system is broken. People are willing to pay fines, fees associated with being documented. Yeah. Of all people, that I used to be Republican.
Yes.
I've been now an independent registered voter for about 9 years now.
Because of all the mess that Republicans have become.
Right. Yes, they changed their platform that was very anti-immigrant, very anti-Mexican, and that's just something that I don't agree with. Now, when I was a Republican, I created 12 steps to securing our borders and legal immigration. Now, I put on my Republican hat on because right now we don't have a problem with Democrats. There are a few Democrats that are not pro-immigrant, but by and large, most Democrats support immigration. Not all, and those are the ones that we got to focus on.
Exactly.
So we do need bipartisan when we support comprehensive immigration reform that Biden says he's going to work on, but Biden is only going to work on it, Salvador, after this $1.9 trillion plan that he's wanting to work on with regard to COVID.
Which is important, which is very important right now for our nation, which is very important. People need to understand right now that our country is going through a lot of mess. We cannot deal with two things at the same time because it's not the way it works. But at least he's going the right way to stop deportation from the DACA people.
Yep.
I mean, immediately.
And I think he's going to go back to DAPA. I think he's going to do DAPA again, keeping families together.
And he already said that. So that's the right way right now. So right. I understand that right now he's going to focus on getting our country together again economically, so we don't go into a Great Depression like we were almost a year ago.
Right. No, I agree. Our political capital needs to be spent on taking care of this COVID plague, this nightmare. A lot of people are out of jobs. There's 30 million Americans who are hungry, who didn't have enough food to eat. So yeah, the first things first. But I do think he's going to do executive orders like Obama with DAPA and DACA.
And he already stopped that deportation. Yep. That's very good news for our students, for people who come here with no criminal background, who want to contribute to our nation, who were brought here. For people that don't know about what DACA and all this stuff is, people, kids were brought here without their consent. I mean, 4, 3 newborns, 5, and they have become professionals or are becoming professionals to contribute to our nation. And they were about to be deported to a country that they have no idea, never lived in, and probably don't even speak the language. So it's not that he wants to keep people who are here who are criminals, are people who are going to contribute, who are going to be professional or are already professional in our country.
Yeah. Yes, every undocumented immigrant, and a lot of Republicans forget this part, every undocumented immigrant contributes to taxes via gas, grocery, sales tax. So they contribute a lot. In fact, with our aging white population, we're going to need labor. We're going to need labor. to take care of our elderly, the aging population. So at some point, we're going to be competing and begging for immigrants, I think 30 years down the line.
Yeah, because our economy needs immigrants like it used to in the past. So, what other news can you tell us that you've heard or you're going to be working on here when it comes to immigration?
Okay, well, one thing I want to tell your audience is one of the immigrant, I would say a woman and her children are American citizens, but she got married to an undocumented immigrant. This is valuable. I just found out today that Congressman Ruben Gallego, his office contacted one of my adopted families and recommended that she get all of her immigrant paperwork where the Trump administration denied her husband. You know, all she wants is for family to be together. Her husband, who's undocumented, left the country because his mom was on her deathbed. Okay,
Wow.
so he left in an urgent matter. He couldn't get back in under the Trump administration, and Trump implemented harsher anti-immigrant policies to make sure that this family didn't come back together. Now, Congressman Gallego contacted this family, said, put all her paperwork in. Let's see if we can get this family together. Her husband doesn't even have a traffic ticket, not
Wow.
one single ding, no criminal, no traffic record whatsoever. And so
Interesting.
that's what's going on, Salvador, right
So,
now.
so we have our senators working hard for their own community, and that's always nice to know. Especially Ruben Gallegos is from Arizona, senator
Yep.
from Arizona. So for people who are listening from other states, he's from the state of Arizona, where Deedee and I reside.
Yeah.
Well, that is very good news. At least we have new evidence and news that people who are waiting for their immigration status or application response, now they have a new government that will be working with them to get this thing fast. And another thing that they were
Yeah.
talking about is that they want to do something like a legal path for at least get people who have been here for at least a few years. And people should understand, not if you come here now, because people will start to pour into the country because they're going to get status. That's not what it said. Okay, just in case people in Latin America might see this and interpret this as something else. Not if you get here. It's people who have been here many years, at least 5, who have paid taxes, have no criminal record. They're going to try to get some type of path for them to be here legally, not get citizenship yet. That's going to be worked on later on. But I don't want to get the bad message that, oh, everybody's going to be legalized if you're an immigrant here in the United States. No, let's get that thing clear, because that's what happened
Yeah.
the past 2 weeks. There was a caravan of almost 10,000 Hondurans, Salvadorians coming to the United States because they thought that with the new administration, everybody was going to be able to come in and get asylum or be here, or at least, yeah. And
10,000.
what was that?
10,000?
Yes, they were stopped in Guatemala because actually Mexico, the United States, and Guatemala got together. The pandemic, there's people there who were positive with COVID. They were just coming in. We had no idea, and they got that idea that with the new government, everything was going to be different. Like they were going to be welcome with the hands up, because somebody was saying that they should come, and they were stopped, and they were told no, Mexico will not allow you, and the United States will not allow you unless you put the petition like legally wise. So yeah, there might be a path for legalization here in the United States, but only for people who have been here for a few years, not if you just come here. So to get that clear, not to get people excited and get their caravans going on because there's going to be a legalization here, a massive, which is not true.
Let's talk about why they're fleeing to begin with. As you recall, the United States government, can you hear me okay?
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. One thing that we need to bring to the forefront is what we should own. Now, you know that Ronald Reagan, I do like Ronald Reagan's policies, but I did not like the policy where they got involved in Latin countries, disrupted their government, and as a result, there was a lot of death because our government sometimes will create chaos. Another case in point is when we gave Saddam Hussein biological weapons only so that he could later on use against the Kurds. I mean, now we told him not to use it against the Kurds, right? But you know, you can't always trust that these leaders and other governments are going to do the right thing. So the United States, we do have to own up to our own failed international policies. And with regard to El Salvador, Hondurans, other Latin countries, I think the United States should sanction, you know, the country of Honduras, El Salvador. You know, why are their own people leaving their government? It's because of their corrupt leaders. So those leaders need to be held accountable. And if that means us, the United States, sanctioning them so that we could correct their behavior, I think that's something that we ought to explore.
Yeah, and I think that's something you just touched something very important. What is going on in Honduras that we've been seeing this in El Salvador that we for the past 2 years we've seen thousands of people fleeing. Something is wrong with the government.
Yes.
Okay. And they can come and say that we're poor. I'm sorry, because if you see how much money they get out of help and how much their politicians are getting,
Yes.
I'm sorry. And I am so glad that the United States, Mexico, and Guatemala got together and said, you know what, Honduras, we're not going to accept your people. Deal with your issues. We can help. We can help with food. We can help with medication. We can help with aid, but deal with your own issues. Don't, especially with that pandemic, do not, make us push people because it's inhumane. I mean, it was sad to see people being pushed, being, even beaten. I mean, because they thought they need a better life, and I mean, I don't take it as a bad thing for them. They're hungry, and the government is doing nothing. And as we know, and we can see in the news, the Honduran government is very corrupt. And I think the United States and Mexico are already, and all the countries are already putting their hands in there because
we need to deal with their leaders harshly.
Yeah, it's creating chaos. Imagine bringing all this 10,000 people to your nation with COVID. I mean, we can barely deal with our own when it comes to our sick, when it comes to our vaccination, when it comes to our testing, to deal with some other countries' issues just because they're corrupt, just because they're not doing the correct thing. Sure, and you're right, it's wrong, and their politicians or government should be accountable for what they're doing to our continent. Especially, I feel sorry for Guatemala because they were the ones dealing with all this 10,000 people, which I felt very bad.
And it doesn't help when we're already dealing with those corrupt leaders. We had our own corrupt leader as well. We had Donald Trump who, called on his supporters to protest and attack the Capitol, and there was insurrection, leaving 5 people dead, and then two committed suicide, and one of the people that died was a cop. So I mean, we had to deal with our own problems with our own corrupt president. So
we had to fight in our country for our own corrupted government. Democracy.
Yeah.
So they should do the same thing. And again, they are going to get help because I know El Salvador actually we're sending food. Mexico is also sending food and medication for their populations. But the thing is that the government is so corrupt that it's not getting there. So that's what they should do. The things we did for 4 years, fight against things that are wrong.
And you brought up, how there were 10,000 people who were trying to come to the United States.
Well, yeah, you got a little bit cut off
And we
there.
had a president who didn't even believe in it, and he denied it, and he knew the seriousness of it.
Yeah,
And now look at where we're at. Arizona, for crying out loud.
exactly. Exactly. And we still have a lot to do, and a lot to do when it comes to our politicians, because we shouldn't let this happen again in the history of our nation, you know, because we need like we need to have those politicians like in other countries who do bad for our nation be accountable.
Yeah. So
Because
our 12 steps to securing our borders and legal immigration, the fundamental reason why we support this is because we believe a healthy and legal immigration solution will secure our borders, create a safer North American continent, and promote a stronger relationship with our continuous neighbors in the North and in the South. Enforcement only initiatives, Salvador, promote a situation that emulates the failed days of prohibition, which serves only to encourage the underground labor market. Our government needs the additional tax revenues that new immigrants generate in order to sustain the burgeoning entitlement programs baby boomers require as they retire. By developing a reasonable immigration plan, we create a system where immigrants share the American tax burdens that you and I have, as they will contribute millions of dollars into our tax coffers. New immigrants sharing our tax burdens will help discourage our government from increasing taxes, because under the current system, these entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid will drain all federal revenues in a few years. And right now we're in a deficit. So we can't even afford ourselves, and China owns a lot of our debt. Our 12-point plan addresses securing our borders, fixing the immigration system, developing a process for legal immigrants to enter, demand for labor, the DREAM Act, sustaining international trade relationships, and employer sanctions that will assuredly be implemented by the current Congress. It includes border security, preservation of our national security is important to us. I don't know how in depth you want me to go into this. How do you want to do
it's
this?
up to you. This is your show. This is your time. It's
Okay,
it's you. You can you tell
let's,
me. You
okay, so
tell me.
I'll go with, let's go with the first point, border security. The preservation of our national security must be be the paramount objective of the immigration policy of the United States. In addition to Border Patrol ensuring the protection of borders in the South, there ought to also be Border Patrol at the northern border, not just the southern. It applies to Canada too. In addition, the Department of Homeland Security should work in conjunction with the DEA to take appropriate measures, including the addition of drug and bomb sniffing canine units that will deter drug activities. So that's point number one. I mean, everybody wants border
Of
security.
course, it's our nation. We need to protect it from south, east, west, north, whatever. For I mean, to avoid any type of violence in our nation. And people who are watching the show or are going to be watching, there's been a lot of outside violence coming into our nation, so we need to deal with that. So that's important. I mean, that's very important, and I think we all agree with that. I think I don't see no American that can say no to that. I mean, we all agree that we need protection for our own good.
Well, why is it that we only focus on the South? I
and
know.
that's and that's something I think is because of immigration, because more like more poor nations come from the they put more emphasis. But if you see that now with this new government, now they're going to emphasize also on the north, because a lot of those drugs and stuff that they use to commit crimes are coming from the north, from the Canada border.
Um, Hold on, sorry about this. The second point is processing application fees, okay? So the creation of a path to citizenship for undocumented persons should not increase the bureaucracy in our government or add to the already heavy burdens on the American taxpayer. All applications for legal status by undocumented immigrants should be processed as efficiently as possible, and all expenses in connection with them wanting to process themselves and have these applications, including background checks, should be on that burden should be on the applicant, not on me and you as taxpayers, in the amount of $500. That's what we're advocating. We think 500 bucks should cover an application, the clerk who's going to run that through,
Yes.
and the background check, right?
Yeah, and that should be very clear. We the taxpayers will not pay for that. It's the applicant who has to deal and pay for their own fees. That's why there's fees. Not people who are they're coming here to take the application, not us who are paying taxes. They pay for the fees to get that application going. Perfect.
Right.
Agree.
The third thing out of the 12 is the offense fine. So there's no right that we Americans hold more dearly than the privilege of calling ourselves citizens of the United States. We do not advocate amnesty. Therefore, undocumented individuals should be required to pay a civil penalty, not a criminal penalty, a civil penalty not to exceed $1,500 per person or $5,000 per family for entering in the country, quote unquote, illegally, and after a background check clearance has been carried out. We think $1,500 per person or $5,000 for a family is sufficient as a quote unquote fine. That way, those Republicans, those Trump Republicans can't sit there and say, oh, well, you know, they got away with it. No, they did not get away with it because they paid their dues and they paid their fine. So a fee and a fine are different. When you're paying a fine, you're acknowledging that you did something wrong. It's just not criminal. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's always been on when it comes to immigration. That's why they call the pardons, and you have to pay a fee for like to get whatever. So people have paid that in the past. So I'm glad you actually clarified that the fee is way different than a penalty.
Then a fine, correct.
The
It's
fine.
like me and you, we get a traffic ticket.
You pay it.
We pay it.
And plus there's fees for processing.
Yeah.
Two different things.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Clear on that.
So number 4 is registration. Upon enactment, undocumented persons must register with the Department of Homeland Security for the background check and wait until the border is certified as secure by the Department of Homeland Security in order to trigger legalization. Persons should be given the opportunity to remain in the United States as residents with a temporary legal status. This is after they pass their background and they're not real criminals. And not only that, we're giving the Department of Homeland Security, because we all want a secure nation, a secure homeland. So in other words, this is important because there is going to come a time when we're going to be in war again. So the DHS needs to, that's where they get their say. It's secure to move on, put them in a temporary legal status until they get processed. But that's where the DHS will come in.
Perfect. Clear on that too.
Number 5, regularization process. Upon certification, undocumented immigrants who satisfy the requirements for temporary legal status with moral character and no criminal record will enter into a 6-year program before becoming citizens of the United States. No participants in the program shall be entitled to receive any federal government assistance while they are in the program. In other words, Salvador, we're saying they have 6 years to prove themselves. 6. And if they're law-abiding, they're contributing members of society after their 6 years, why not? Why not have them become citizens and share the tax burdens?
Exactly. So it's not like they're giving the just whatever. It's 6 years.
6 years. So that's the regularization process.
Got it. Perfect. So this is getting clear for those people who think that immigration, that everybody's getting a free pass and they can do this and it's not fair. We're giving you guys who are against it the key points so that way you have a better understanding of the real thing instead of what you were being told for the past 4 years.
Right. Number 6 out of the 12, we put this clause in there, paying back taxes for the Republicans, the restrictionists who say that they don't pay taxes. Well, guess this is why we put this paragraph in here. Undocumented immigrants must apply for a Social Security number from the IRS and pay income taxes owed We recognize that undocumented immigrants contribute already to the system by paying state and federal sales, use, and excise taxes. But if they owe anything, pay it. And that eliminates that problem of Republicans thinking that they don't pay anything.
Exactly. Perfect. Understood.
Number 7, assimilation and mandatory English education. This is paragraph 7 of our 12 steps. Undocumented immigrants who are qualified to enter the regularization process shall be required to take courses in English and civics as a condition to obtain a certificate of completion for citizenship. The hours of study should be twice the amount to what the Reagan administration had proposed as part of the immigration legislation championed by the president in the 1980s. So we're saying, you know, we know what President Reagan did with regard to mandatory English and assimilation. Go ahead and double it. Double it. That way we don't hear anything that, you know, they're not participating in English classes and, you know, trying to assimilate for communicative purposes.
Perfect. So they have to know English. They're going to study English. They will know English. So
now, but there are, Salvador, you and I both know, there is a faction of the older generation that just know the bare minimum. And I think it hurts themselves.
Yeah.
I think that if you learn more English and are more educated, you're going to do better.
And that's on them. But now the thing is that you need to know English, and now it's a whole different era, and it's a whole different story from what happened in the past. Perfect. Understood.
Number 8 out of 12, the U.S. labor market, agricultural jobs, and the DREAM Act. Individuals who satisfy all of the requirements of the regularization process shall become permanent legal residents of the U.S. Depending upon the labor demands, the Department of Homeland Security can begin the green card process if employment levels are 5% or below. If the national unemployment levels are greater than 6%, the DHS will only process those immigrants working in unskilled industries where the demand for their labor remains very high, such as the case with agricultural jobs, hospitality sectors, highly skilled workers in competitive industries where demand cannot be satisfied, like Google, the Silicon Valley jobs. They're always wanting those specific visas to attract that kind of intellectual talent. Individuals who complete or have previously completed 4 years of service in the U.S. forces. Individuals not satisfying such a criteria would be granted a 2-year extension of the regularization process. So back to the U.S. Air Force, I believe that if you served our country and you put your life on the line, that's instant. That's instant earning for immigration. To be a U.S. citizen.
Things that we had issues in the past, that people who were in the Army, Air Force were deported. And you're like, what? You fought for our nation, and we say thank you. And then like, oh, by the way, bye. Horrible. Horrible. You were wearing the American flag and fought for the nation, for the freedom of our nations. And then you were, whatever. I don't want to go. Yes.
Yeah. No, it should be instant United States citizenship. I believe that with all my heart.
Of course. Yeah. They sacrifice, like many others who don't sacrifice their life for our nations, and they call themselves Americans.
Salvador, I know people who served 2 or 3 tours overseas in war, and they got booted out. That's a travesty. Yeah. It's happening. Number 9 out of 12, the guest worker program. The adoption of a guest worker program would permit individuals registering with DHS to legally enter into the U.S. to work in states whose governors or other legally authorized persons certify that demand for labor cannot be satisfied. Existing populations of legal residents will strengthen the economy. The number of workers admitted to such a program would depend on the demand levels identified by the states, and can suspend the program in the event that the national unemployment rate exceeds certain levels. So in other words, not everybody wants to be a citizen. So give them, if they want to come here to work, to put food on the table for their families from whatever country, and they want to go back. Not everybody wants to be a US citizen. Give them a guest worker program so that they're here legally and they don't have to hide in the shadows of society.
Perfect. So I'm glad that's on the table.
Yeah. 10 out of 12, almost done. H-1 visas. At a bare minimum, the number of H-1 visas issued in any given year should be increased from their insufficient current maximum of 85,000 to at least 200,000. The H-1 visa program should be revamped to cut unnecessary red tape out of the process and take into account the aging baby boomer population, which has resulted in a shortage of labor in the fields of education, science, and math. In other words, this benefits the Silicon Valley type of industries like Google, like probably even Facebook. You know, we're talking about software companies.
H-1, okay, because people don't know what H-1 visa is, yeah.
11, targeting, circumventing criminals. Okay, so this goes to the quote unquote real criminal element. Okay. We need to get smart and concentrate on training and supervision that will focus on circumventing criminals that wish to do us real harm. Congress should consider smart targeting of circumventing criminals after Congress passes a reasonable immigration solution where the electronic employment eligibility verification would not immerse America's workers and business in burdensome bureaucracy and avoid eroding the freedoms of the American citizen. So basically, we want to focus on the real criminal element, not people who come here with garden tools to work.
Got it. Perfect. That's more okay. Perfect.
Which, by the way, the Obama administration did do that after his administration. Some, you know, people were screaming loud enough, you know, he started focusing on the real criminal element.
Instead of the real workers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last one, and this is important in order to get the other people on the other side of the aisle, the Republicans, to come on board with comprehensive immigration reform. It will benefit our nation, is freer trade relations for safer North American continent. The United States should continue honoring trade agreements so that we do not undermine the stability of the economies and our relationships with Mexico and Canada. We want to continue to have a healthy relationship with our northern neighbor and our southern neighbor, because in real war, if there's people who really wish to do us harm, we want to be in good graces with our neighbors.
Our neighbors, yeah, of course. I mean, you protect them, they protect you, and plus we're neighbors. And if we all do good, we'll flourish. And some, if you know, if some country goes down, we all do. So it's kind of like we're together. It's a continent.
Now, one of the things that Lydia wanted me to add sort of in this was, and Lydia Hernandez is a former state representative of Arizona. She's also a current school board member of Cartwright School District. One of the things that she wants to make sure that the government is proactive on is with regard to the notarios. Apparently, there's a lot of fraud with people who claim to be notarios, notary publics, for those that are English speaking. Because there's a lot of fraud, and a lot of the gente gets bamboozled,
scammed with those.
And maybe that's something that you need to talk to her.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have Lydia. Hopefully, that's an invitation here publicly now, Lydia, to be in the show. And let's say that in the 70s, 80s, the notary people had a little more power than they do have now. So I know a lot of people, especially in Latin America, the notary people have power. They're more like lawyers and they know the laws. But when they come here, they think it's the same thing, and it's not. And they had more power in the past. Like, my abuelita, my grandma went to a notario like 20 years ago, and he helped her do the paperwork and blah, blah, blah. That's not the thing anymore, because law changes every single time, and they're not expected to know the law.
Yeah. So that's something that's going to be a really good, juicy discussion for you and Lydia to have. She does agree with the 12 points. She knows that this is written by a former Republican trying to get more Republicans on board for comprehensive immigration reform. And that's pretty much it.
Perfect.
What do you think about it, Sal?
Well, this is very important that now we have points that we can actually depart and actually have a conversation instead of going everywhere like nothing. So,
Yeah.
very good points that you just gave us that we can actually have a discussion that we actually going to be focusing when it comes to this new government, that what he's going to be doing in the next weeks and the next months. And at least we have points to deal with instead of just going in limbo.
Yeah.
Well, Deedee, it was a pleasure to have
Yep.
you here in the show. It's our first one in English out of hopefully many. And we will have something in Spanish. Vamos a tener algo en español de inmigración with Lydia Hernandez if she accepts it, or with somebody who wants to talk about this. But this is the first one in English. So hopefully you gave us the good luck here in Nuestro Espacio, the channel. Please subscribe. We'll be having other stuff in English. So that's a promise, and it will be done. All right.
Thank you,
So thank you
Salvador.
very much, Deedee. Have a great evening. And please cover everybody, use protection, hand sanitizer, wash your hands, cuídate.
Mine. Hold on.
Of course. And I'm going to put mine too to remember everybody. Oh,
I was wearing this one.
that's so cool. Yeah. Let's stop this pandemic. We all want to be free again. So, Deedee,